Alright, hi guys, my name is Jonathan Robuck, and I'm talking about the role that chemical engineers play in society by purifying and treating water that we use and drink and stuff like that. So the objectives of this presentation are to demonstrate the immense need for globally for clean water, because I knew that there was a water shortage and that there are people everywhere across the globe that don't have access to clean water and they suffer because of it, but didn't really understand quite the magnitude of that problem. So I wanted to kind of demonstrate that for everyone. And then after that, I wanted to describe in detail the different roles that chemical engineers play in each of those processes that treat water that we use today. And there's a couple of them. There's distillation, like the distillation columns she talked about earlier. There is reverse osmosis, which we learned about in PChem this semester. There's UV treatment, and there's chlorine purification. Those are some of the four main and most popular types of water treatment that people do nowadays. So a quick overview. So the need is at an all-time high, and obviously over time population is going to keep increasing until we reach that maximum of the Earth. But I don't think we're near that. And there's everyone, you can see that the global population is rising daily. And with more people, you need more water. So that's obviously going to increase the need for water, and we can't keep up with the demand already. So as more people come, the difference between the supply and the demand is just going to keep that gap is just going to keep growing until we can really vamp up production to the level that we need of that. So chemical engineering principles are instrumental in creating and optimizing methods to purify this water, both natural water, like lakes and rivers and stuff like that, both taking that water in to purify it and then use it for eating, drinking, cleaning it or whatever. Or also treating wastewater. So whether it's wastewater from humans or wastewater from industrial factories or whatever, that wastewater has to be done something with. You can't just kind of throw it away and hope nothing bad happens. And chemical engineers are obviously really important for that. So specifically, you need to increase production steadily with population and treat industrial wastewater for disposal or reuse, because ideally you'd be able to reuse a lot of the water that you use up, so that you're not just consuming the natural resources, you're kind of recycling and stuff like that, because obviously that's good. If we have a water shortage, you shouldn't just be using it if you can reuse it to some extent. So the need for clean water. So I'm going to go into more depth about that now. So greater than 840,000 people every single year die from water-related diseases, whether it's diarrhea or all kinds of dysentery and waterborne diseases. That's more people than live in the city of San Francisco. So that's having all of San Francisco die every year just from water-related diseases. That's ridiculous. I can't even fathom that. That's unbelievable. And globally, so that's just people who die from it. 750 million people globally lack the necessary access to clean water for whatever, for sanitation or food or drinking or whatever it may be. That's 2.5 times the population of the United States. So, just the thought, I can't even comprehend how many people that really is. But I know it's a lot because the global population is, 6 or 7 billion or something like that. So, a sixth-ish of the globe lacks access to clean water, which is kind of absurd to think about, because water is something such a basic need of humans. I think one of the first things you think you need, you need food, you need shelter, and you need water. So the water crisis is, according to the World Economic Forum in January of this year, is the #1 global risk based on impact to society. So how devastating it is and how much damage it causes globally. It's the #1 and the #8 global risk based on likelihood of occurring within the next 10 years and how drastic that could change and how much we could see it come to the forefront of our daily problems and affect us. So 90% of those, so if there's 840,000 deaths per year, there's about 30,000 deaths every single week, and 90% of those occur in children under 5 years old. So that's partially because there's a lot of children being born, and a lot of those children being born are being born in third world countries, stuff like that, in places where there's unsafe water and unhygienic living conditions. And when children come into that, #1, their immune systems are so much weaker than grown adults. So they can't handle all these diseases that sometimes, we can handle if we get a stomach bug or two, but a child can't really do that. They die. So 90% of those deaths are children, and like that's just super sad to think about. Like there's so many kids dying every day just because they can't get clean water, which to us is such a basic thing that like we all have. Like clean tap water is everywhere in the United States. Not everywhere, but pretty commonplace, and it's really not everywhere else in the world. So by 2050, it's estimated the world's population is going to grow to 3 billion, and 90% will be in the developing world. So yeah, the problem is in the developing world, and that's where all the population is growing. So the demand is just growing out of control. And most of that water most of our fresh water that like, we use goes to feeding, because you don't realize like yeah you drink water, but you don't realize how much you need to feed and clean and do all that other stuff that's so essential every day. So you need between like 20 and 50 liters per day just to like maintain yourself and like live a normal life. Okay, so I'm gonna start talking about some of the ways that we purify water and treat it. So number one is water distillation. It's actually the same exact graphic from earlier, funnily enough. But distillation is the process of when you heat up water, it boils, and you capture and cool the resultant hot vapors and collect the condensed vapors, and the impurities kind of stay in the bottom, and they accompany the steam and end up in the distillate, and you get clean water. We've all probably learned about that in either NEB or some classes or multiple classes. Pretty essential process to treating water all over the globe. Pretty commonplace nowadays. And it's pretty obvious how chemical engineering dependent that is, because that's like a very basic, classic example of chemical engineering. So yeah. Reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is when you take some tap water and you have a semi-impermeable membrane and you apply pressure to it to make all the water flow through the membrane, because the membrane is constructed so that the particles, the contaminants, can't go through it, but the water can. And it's a really good and clean way and pretty efficient way of producing clean water, because it removes up to 99% of the original components present. So that's pretty common. Also, just like water distillation, really essential to what we do, very chemical engineering heavy. I mean, I know in physical chemistry we've had a lot of problems real recently about reverse osmosis and permeable membranes and stuff like that, osmotic pressure. So very clearly relevant. And UV water purification is another one. It's most cost effective and the most efficient on the market today. So you have an inlet with water. It gets radiated by the ultraviolet radiation that comes out of this little tube, and it just pumps out. And I guess that's all there really is. I mean, it leaves no chemicals in the water, no byproducts, no change in taste, none of that. It just radiates the water, which kills the biological things inside of it that would contaminate it or whatever. So that one's the most effective and most efficient. So hopefully the water purification of the future, unless we find something that's even more efficient and effective. And then there's chlorine purification, which you're like putting chlorine gas into water, which also breaks down the cell walls and the lipids in the walls, basically rendering all of the biological molecules inside of that non-functional and they no longer affect you. So it's pretty safe. It's really common in the US. Like a lot of times, people will chlorinate their pools with and stuff like that. And chlorine, you can get chlorine tablets to drink water and like out of rivers and stuff like that. Doesn't really taste good. You don't really like see chlorine everywhere because it's pretty not that safe for like regular people to handle. And like if you don't know what you're doing with it, you can definitely it's very toxic. You can't like drink that stuff. So somewhat dangerous, but like not as favorite as the other ones. But it's also much more portable. Like you can't like bring a distillation column with you. You can bring a chlorine tablet. So there are different uses for different things. So how do chemical engineers apply that? So we apply our in-depth chemistry background and physics background to optimize these chemical systems and constantly improve them and adjust them to meet production standards. We oversee all those changes, and we really work with the whole water enterprise to change legal requirements, because the FDA and all kinds of government agencies, I'm sure, are constantly changing the requirements for water purification standards and reuse and stuff like that. And so chemical engineers are very much at the forefront in trying to keep up with all these requirements and mandates. And we also supply a lot of water quality control for industries, for like beverages, pharmaceuticals, everything that really uses water. We're really the ones making sure that water isn't bad and that it meets up to standards. So besides those 3 points, we also make sure we check up on the equipment, we review the current treatment methods and the cost efficiency, always really checks and balances, making sure that everything's running smoothly, optimally, and efficient at all times. Because if we're already at a shortage, you can't really afford to have any slip-ups or any, mistakes. So you really have to have everything optimized. And if you do find something that's wrong, we are, obviously very important to like fix those and take corrective action and provide the necessary information to like fix those problems. So, quick little take-home message review. There is a drastic global clean water shortage causing hundreds of thousands of deaths per year, which is a number that I'm sure continually grows. It's really ridiculous. Like, maybe next year it'll be like up to 1 million people will die annually from water diseases, which is an absurd number. And obviously, chemical engineers and their principles are crucial to all the different steps of water purification and treatment and all that, just to meet the demand of society in the United States and globally, really. And through a variety of methods, chemical engineers design these clean water systems, and they really optimize them and play a key role in every single step along the way. So, any questions about it?